아니 최니야데 대시 고르 최니야데 라니 지고게 단다 두야 시드마인 바바 라나 거딘시게 네 치디기 파마레 빈자레 토보레 게겐레 파모레 따딘데르디 아니 저수 상 탐제기 수준의 거딘지기 하니 도와심지 탐제라야네 펜바바식 두야기 치디니 최디니기 예스메 디치디다 최 Terra samba bomba chigin samba gunne kuno awajik chosra.
First, we should assume the correct intention that we are listening to the Four Noble Truths, the Holy Dharma of the Four Noble Truths, and not just listening for oneself, but for, in the context of this life, those beings who have been very kind to oneself, one's parents, relatives, friends, teachers, and so forth. All who have been kind, in short, all living beings listening for their benefit. So therefore, I think that one is going to listen to this Dharma by hearing, reflecting, and meditating on it solely for the welfare of living beings.
다 이미 가고 건로다 먼저 드린 인데지 최 암전이야를 고급 총어디 이게 어서 뭐이 상가고 공부했어.
Now, we have the opportunity today to hear this Dharma, this teaching. So rejoice in that opportunity.
다 드린 저 년년이 쉬셔라. 다네 컨테스트 주고라나 이 나란조 단다 거와 스나다 매게 흉내 셰 루다 좀 된데 와 상제로 좀 된데 상제네 다 상마제 공내라다 지 공잡제 따연리 팀상으로서 공자야지 루트만이 샤세로 근데 도와트만이 샤 소와트만이 스네 춤만이 샤 시세로 어딘데 공잡인데 스스 루기 진내당 주어져 진내당은 되네 디둑담을 소화담을 녀야 소화되다 디둑담을 녀 동해 먹고 싶지 yuwa dila dungye nega dila mingda ta dungye dimbas mingda mishidi ta dungye dimba di da mingda ta ko dungye gran shinji yor dangana do nangba inare nangba menare chuke lenare chuke malinare zamuling dinar de shinji milu di yin shinji la midi rinla ta dungye ji yungu yor wa dila ya luden korang la ya dungye dimbas mingda wa ta dungye nima nime nangi dungye di kane yungu do si de ne kyu kunjung dimba la dene yungu do si kunjung siya di dungye di ne chi gyume gyume ne chung ma yinba yang kunjo do chi ka sui xiao ma yinba gyu dan jen mangbo chi la dene dungye kun di jung se shi chi do si dungye jung se shi chi gyu chi do si chi di ade gom gyam ne dombe shenbre marang zo gom gyab na samutana shigres de ngoy ne zi yo inza yo de ratwe yo res ro
So in terms of looking at the Four Noble Truths, we're looking at the way the samsara, the cycle of existence, is produced. So Shakyamuni Buddha attained to the state of enlightenment or full awakening, but prior to doing so, he entered into meditation on these close placements of mindfulness, taking as a referential object first mindfulness of body, then feelings, then mind, and then thirdly phenomena. So we too will go through these processes of meditating. Firstly, in taking as our focus our bodies and understanding that our bodies are in the nature of dissatisfaction and suffering, and that our bodies undergo change. But then related to our bodies, there are sensations and feelings that come up. And such sensations and feelings that come up are often in the nature of dissatisfaction and suffering. So we name them so. So this is given the label true sufferings, the first of the Four Noble Truths. And it's the reality that whether you're Buddhist or not, whether you're spiritual or not, whether you're in this world system or not, the nature of suffering is just there. That's like a reality. So therefore, what does it mean when we go through difficulties and problems and sufferings day by day? This we call true origins. And this is what Buddha came to see, that there is an origin of all dissatisfaction we experience. It doesn't come about through no cause and condition, nor were these problems and sufferings created by a creator God. But underlying all of the sufferings we experience, there are many causes and conditions. There is a basis. There is a basis, an origination. And this is what Buddha saw. This is also something we need to see, and we set about to meditate, to introduce ourselves to that reality.
ta dungye si samdana desi kokha goyo re rwa lamsa dungye labde na ngaran zo lu den shi dwa lu de rwa ngazo lu dang ngazo lu di dungye denpa res denpa chi na denpa thangbo res de yu kunjung denpa la chung res kunjung sa de lej kunjung da nyomu kunjung ni sha yo re ta bena khande re la ngaran zo ya samdana nge lu di kane chung re sirwa nye lu diya kane chung re samdang to di ta lu di pame kudal dine chungwa di nganzo shingira rwa nganzo pama nyi yo kelen chikra ane pama kudal dine chung re ane di nala ya namshi siya jik shiva si nganzo sim siya jik duwa da namshi siya duwa ta namshi di dang nye namshi di dang pame 그다 이 대화 컨텐츠 그래 대화 지어라
Yep.
대화의 수수 그래 봐 대화의 수수 그래 라디 다 남과 산재베는 이 레그 참자로 레그 와 레게 아니 남시에 대한 아주 류딩이 참자로 봐 레그 다 남시다 류 참자니 레서데 컨데샤고레 라연데 다디 레코랑 셰바송자 제세 자카고 저르다 한다 레디 셰바와 레디 셰바 상상나 레기 줄라 레세 라그레 상상 레기 데빌 레세 라그레 레지 모 코랑 레세 라긴디타 상상나 렌데 시디 레단 데우님도 셰무다 레데 시디 레단 레기 데우님도 셰무다 디지털 하전 자신보고 주시지래 디나네 아주 시에 가고 저러 가서는 셰발라야 되고 가도요 말에 입이요 말에 미그 통화요 말에 라괴리가요 말에 제가 딩드기 체리바게 대세 자가고 실지 차고 왔다디 고유 걸고 왔다 딩드 체리바 데돌라 데데 배톰로 건드려 체니제요 말에 미기 빠르자니요 말에 가도요 입니요 말에 고 제자베 갈래 가고 저래 다데 가르신 거라서는 곰잡네 띵이지 셈바 땜보 차요데 당고 수수 셈신야 아니 레스야데 배 당랑저 베나데 저랑저 단다 다 진짜디 진짜디 베나로 tomba jumde de sunja ngone reti ngone yaboshi dosro ta de ngone mayang ya shin gu do samje dumba de ji leba ta garana changje gyawa jema mongola tombe chödan jeya ge lesa sare ta garana ba
yeah
다 저런저 다디 가르시 거래로 다디 초고나면 도 재미되지 다 딜레당하나 셰로니 무비로 다 디디약서래 다 디다 처면도 삼제 삼무든데 땅서서는 겨워지 말라 덤베 최당 파릉라야게 레사자데 삼무당야 니질 사로 레사야 들어 자
okay
디직 신도나 야고요 레스로
the concept of suffering is not an easy one to understand, but if we think of it in relation to just our body or our body's nature, that is an exemplification or an example of true sufferings. And we know that there's a cause behind it. And we say that the cause behind that state of our body suffering being true origins. And true origins, again, are karma, these two categories of karma and disturbing emotions. You might ask yourself then, what is the source of my body? And then we can say, of course, well, you know, on one level, it is the parents, sperm and ova. That's like one source. Okay, so we can accept that level physicality. But then there's this second thing of consciousness, shepa, number shepa, or mind. And then the question comes, what then is the connection between the sperm and ova of the parents and the mind, the mental continuum? Who made it? From the perspective of Buddha Dharma, that connection is karma. That's a karmic connection. Because there has to be a correlate between one's body and one's mind, how it came to be. But even then again, this concept of karma, it's very difficult to get a handle on that in one sense, because it's like a consciousness is related to this. Because sometimes we can talk about karma in terms of the cause, and yet other times we can talk about karma in terms of the result. And yet other times we can talk about karma in terms of its entity or its characteristics. Or we can talk about karma as it being behavioral cause and effect. So here we can understand that, you know, karmic causes are vast. Not only that, but if we look at consciousness itself, consciousness has no shape, no color. It can't be obstructed or contacted with anything physical. It's so difficult to kind of put a handle on it. It could make scientists go round and round. Why? because you can't take a photo of it, you can't see it under analysis, it has no color. However, if you cultivate a stable meditative practice with your mind, one can come to understand karma. And in another level, if you come to this class with kind of like a yearning or a thought to know, okay, so what is it about karma and so forth? Right there, if you had that interest, you've created the cause to meet with the teaching again in the future life. So it's seeing karma on that level as well, what you kind of aspire to, because you think of it, you know, I'd like to learn about that. Conversely, if you just think, oh, what's that? And it seems very distant from you, you'd rather watch a movie or listen to music. And in the future life, the type of karma that's created there is that you're more distant from the spiritual path or far away from learning what karma is about. So in that sense, we should know that karma is like the way the mind thinks, what it wants, what it aspires to.
그래서 미다 미 저체인지로 당한 미딜의 저 그런 신입니다. 아천 미디님들 되게 미디 마토마 지긴 있는데 저 디체들의 다른 로 저치마이네 테스트 투구에 담는 저 차자로 투고 다가람선 카제려야 되는데도 이제 레사비오라다 나 미디다 갈레다 도네 당아 저와도 미팅에 샤긴인데 유릉보 저 샤도 지긴 지 말하는 팬도 그런래 팬도 연구도 최단에 심띵네 유릉보지 저 샤긴 선배 삼는 데지 땅데 이체들래요 저와도 유릉도 돼야 저 치말에 저 유릉보지 투보장 그 남산 저 마체 말하면서 가시 미 저거로 채네 야살 거를 지켜빈데 야 투용도로 그래서 레디 저야 보스션 저기 레기 저한테 틱틱 채나선 틱셈 지레도 아마 인데지 중나선 인데지 마중나선 사로데 다직 중나선사로도 딱 연된 그 자야게 저 자고라 지금 마중은 나들 거기면 이 뭐고 이 매직 지금 다직 교육을 쳐 상담인데 레 두자 사용 거래 연된 차들 상담제 somebody 가오다 지 somebody 숙청부 차도들 레 겨사용 거잖아 레자디 삼로단연이질 사용들 배 제가 디 특히 생각하면서 가진 레고도 지도 살아라 근데 근데 군인이 싸우도 와양에 레고 지마시나 돈다 뉴모고 셰디 근데 간레르지 간레 투고 있나 팅그라
So then it's the same with the humans we interact with in terms of karma. Some beings you don't want to see, you don't want to see, and there's like a distance. But due to karma, you will in fact meet again. But because you didn't want to see them, there could be a separation quite fast. On the other hand, if you cultivate an attitude that it's not so easy to get on with this person at the moment, but if I stick it through and I stick through the relationship, it will benefit me and it will benefit them. The mind goes a bit deeper. So you've made a connection with the person in this life, and in the future life, you'll connect again. And there won't be that kind of separation so much because you'll have fostered a deeper connection. And we circle in life like that. The mind thinks, oh, if only I got it. Or conversely, I don't want to get it. Now, these two minds of wanting and not wanting, if we allow the mind to go down a positive path, or I aspire to that, then it's like we're creating like a virtuous state of mind. But if the mind has a kind of negative dismissal, I don't want to meet that, then that's like a creating like more non-virtuous. And I what's being said is that the karma created is by mind, by one's attitude there. And I thought to say a few words around karma for those that are new, because if you haven't heard generally about karma, to suddenly to go into these afflicted mental states might seem a bit unrelated.
That then le kunjung silva le dine chongre shero dan ne ju mangbo chi ju ye mangbo chi le dine chonga de duk tu yore ta de 他的时那当都是吃吧了，就是生的那个家这是托面呢，顶上托面呢，连带那下的，他是他的三件没新的嘛的吧，现在个推荐有的，那历史上就用军事的那新的了吧，他谈到就蒙古籍的，这样做的，变了，挺多个村里的，安斯坦当昆州写成就的陆军车的吧。挺得着了，其实我这多么军队的写现决定我这陆军去大街去了，还得，当时去考虑是呢，挺多村里当着着要的，所以说个，可能写不得一件嘛，这个，所以说接不起来了吧？那你别拉出个多呢，开了，拉出没得呢，开了要么，加上南北区的开区的考虑是呢，东北军队的个送过来的嘞，这两个就大街去了吧？你大街去，上山那样去，我那就的马腿那样，所以说什么偏不得要的是吧？确实都，南北区个闽语的考虑是呢，闽来偏多样的去的是吧？闽语偏不起来是吧？加上了去，我那就当马蹄北区的这样，所以说什么偏不得要的是吧？就是那样，这个样，所以说什么偏呢？这个了吧？吧，我让上我去过，写个，对不对？去送给国定可能对这什么偏不起多也是的吧？加上了，就我那就马蹄呢。别那，我那就没听不开的是呢，多么就那的电不住要的送要的，让子女住要的送要的，有让我那住要的送要的，七天要的送要的，他都是什么？这六天要的，六前面要的送要的，都是什么？我那就来的要么来的来呗，提卡都的了，我就上路点打么的来偏头有个印象，的，和有些要么了，是偏头呢，接了我地里头，就忙过有的是吧？
Yeah. And then, in terms of the source of sufferings, we said there was two origins, and amongst those two of karma and disturbing emotions. The category of karma, the law of behavioral cause and effect, it's quite hard to understand the subtleties of it unless you have a very high level of advanced concentration or insight. Of course, a Buddha, an awakened one, can see the subtleties of cause and effect. However, there are some other levels of cause and effect we can understand through reasons on some levels, just as you might understand or study Einstein from that scientific approach. Similarly, we as Buddhists would study what the Buddha said and analyze it. And not necessarily believing what Buddha said at once, but doing a kind of thorough analysis. And if it's valid, if we've analyzed it and we see that it's valid, accepting it. But if it's not, even if it's something that was said, but it's not valid for us, checking up about it. Because it was what Shakyamuni Buddha encouraged us to examine. But then there are some things that might not actually be the case, and yet things are beneficial for us. Lots of things. For example, things that don't accord with the way things are, but in order to help us on the path, we might engage in their being the case. For example, Buddha taught for some people that things truly exist to some extent, or they intrinsically exist, and there are particles that exist in a certain ways. This is to help us. And there are lots of examples like that, of things that don't actually accord with the final mode of reality, but still they benefit us.
근데 레레 이야 아니 꾸네는 저 녀모나 되는 총으로 봐. 두나가라서 디독도지 레인데 네 간에 청도 수수 semba 동에 간에 청도스데 차단 온 중에 하고다라. 아니 이 차단 아니 타도 맞게 텐좀라 되는 거 동에 뭔가 용되고.
Yeah.
아주저 기생 장 유튜브 도심 말이라.
Yeah.
아 디제기 잡라 디제 마지 군대한테 로카시 시게 거래도. 这类研究你需是研究是的话呢，在外牛毛的鸟是吧？在外牛毛的他鸟，这些的，这些的也没是吧？就这类研究你需是的，别那个说 컨트롤하고지 마지에 콘라 아니 가르쳐 온 거래로 컨트롤 마지 콘라 가르쳐 어디 네 남샤데 다 셰거레스와디 군중 뇨모베 군중 세야데 레지 군중다 뇨모베 군중서 군중 덴바스 하전 야침보로 레지 군중 뇨모베 군중서 다 뇨모 단유 투키징 도사르 다 년유 뉴슈스 되는 그 직도잖아 너 가셔야 지 고뇨면도 야고야 지시나로
Yes, the conzo di nang la kasa sem jongi ngabjing chik yorda katering. So now looking at the true origins, we've looked briefly at karma, but there's also the fact that when we go through difficulties, when we experience sufferings, there are certain sensations we experience or certain emotions. These are often called afflictions or destructive emotions, such as, when we went through the 6 primary ones last week: attachment, anger, pride, ignorance, doubt, jealousy, and so forth. But there are also a second group of 20 that are called secondary afflictions, or literally close afflictions, because they work closely with these primary 6. So for example, prior to anger arising, what kind of comes up and so forth.
당도 레리 체제 대대시도 뒤스잡도 생더라 더 당보디 인유니시는 초와세더와 초와세야디 아니 컨트롤당 컨트롤 차도로 컨트롤당 타니오지기 아니 셈나야지 셈 컨트롤마지 지들다 초와세디 기고 다도 삼단다 하고 그러잖아 군에 너심 봐서데 미팅 알아 내가 지금도 삼삼 시스템을 레기도 알레 미팅 알아 지금 내가 지금도 삼삼 시스템을 계속 녀들 안에 컨트롤 게임 거로 다 대님도라 뉴모신다 요르들 다 소디 컨트롤 게임 미디 알아 거기면도 시야로 미팅 알아 내가 지금도 시야로 상무든 레지 대제들 컨트롤 게임 거로 제가 컨트롤 마지 거는 어디 지기요 가서 그래 symptom league that
and we're going to go through now these 20 one by one. So you have a list with you where it says E, secondary afflictions, the first of which is belligerence, or sometimes called wrath. Now, this is like close to anger, in the kind of retinue of anger. Before full-blown anger arises, you can have the thought, I will harm them, or I don't like them, or they might harm me. So one can, and of course, there are other things going on as well when anger is produced, but these are the primary ones.
하지랑서 컨트롤이 강해요나. 제가다 컨트롤 주디제디 군에 나서면 뭐 굴라도 좀 하고 그러더라. 대단히 지 리카시 갈레카 이제 보너서 카시 두고도 그래서 카시 아니 다 지금 로좀 마신도 다 대야마제로 마제게 다들 주인 담는다요. 뒤뒤다 초어디 컨트롤마지고는 제게요. 현대는 다들 레선으로 와. 다들 매우선으로 와. 미디 알아 너버제선 미디 너버제버디 니지곤 미디레 카야머리 니제 코라모란디 둥에다 강연 먹어지는 알아 너버제 마신바 오제오스 니지게위나 디가도들라다 먼저 닝지 땅 참바이 곰토비이나 아는 뭐네 컨트롤 게토고 말다 와 계진이와 컨트롤들 란슈기 가르로 데 삼단 두즈 스페 야고요 곰 삼단 도나로
We talked about then, prior to full-blown anger, the thought perhaps to harm someone. So in the first moment, the thought to harm them, in the second moment, the anger comes in. These causes of anger are very good to know if you're an irritable person. Because sometimes the cause for anger is the thought to cause someone harm. But some people get angry because they're tired or when they're exhausted. Yet others if they're hungry, and yet others out of pride. So this kind of belligerence, thinking that. So if you know that those are the conditions under which you get angry, then rather than that, you could think, oh, you know, the person that is intending to harm me, to try and have compassion for them because they're suffering and they're acting that way out of unawareness or ignorance. So it's very good to try and not let it get to that second moment of anger before that.
사실 난 먼저 뭐로 대신 시작한다 대된 마다 삼도 망고 쉐요 다음에 뭐도 시작하는 뭐도 더
Yeah, so no, we'll go through these, but only in a really pithy way because we don't have time to go in depth, isn't it? These.
다들 니버디 군진리도 당도디 장가 시작만 도시긴데로 군진들와 니버 군진리도 군진디 가래라서나 군진디 가래서나 콘도 사사네요. 아니 콘도마 윤투제 냐니시도 디 군진리 다 콘도 미가시 콘도 빼 유름 뭐 되든 요든데로 지리는 콘도서 니마치 콘도 니마니 니마숨 콘도서 아니 제메 다 로직이 콘로 미지로 콘도 쉐우잖아 로직이 제라야 미드 통인데 양자 콘도 사용 거다 뭐 딜라 군진 숙심 보여야 따라 군진.
Right. This is second one, kunzin or resentment. The anger has already been generated, but it's held in over a sustained period of time. So some people might be angry with someone and they hold it 2 days, 3 days. They're holding this anger inside. And yet, some even for 1 year, so that even if they don't see the person, but they see them a year later, they're still holding that anger. And that is a sign of strong resentment.
되게 냠볼라다 미다바 공부래와 아니 깨지래다 중음하게 내주 대사브래 다 당당 아니 메즈 사와지래 나라에네 메즈 사와지래 삼제 아니 미다고에 삼무단제 아니 지 교도 되버지와
야
삼무단도 베이나 군진도 야라
What really helps to reverse as a countermeasure to resentment is to meditate on impermanence. Well, that state of being angry is momentary and that's past. I'm new now, they are new now. So countermeasure like that. Yeah, so this one is in the retinue of anger, you know, like close, let's say, to anger.
아드네 숨바 차바사들와 차바사데 아니지 녀와 배버스나래로 이무그 차도로 왔다 미시베 온게 페나 게베신이 미든데 그 수술라 펜베 삼베 꾸네레 녀발링 요데 아니 디무그 온게 데 밀어 마셰베시 밀어 민상마다 셰고 수술 게베신이라 셰고라 데 남베츠네이나 이상 기겐데야라데 단당하는 좀 미망고지 눕절레나 콜로티로도 Again, like this, boss state boss hour state Muneshina the mare. Again, like the one is Simgi, Kangin Seni, Kangin Sen, watching ye. And this is Yani, Duni, Tama, Shesat. A deal of Taji, Taji Machanana, Hela Yiji, they meet someone a Sheshana, and it is on a mission, the Michido Shell Kaura. 아니 내주 찍디 배 주스 주디 자스 주디 배 간단지라 배 담도 자를 내주 춘주직 첨모스디 되게 미망고지 수수 예바디 셴누고요 말아미 가르스나 이제요 말아 따라와 디델시나 미신다시게 대셔는 안다 수수 예바디 심나냐데 심나냐데 델마지고 찬으로 이 창말라 부르 셰잖아 펜토고 말아 펜마도 이거는 미가셰디 내주 드라마로 둠도 셀 가우도와 안딘데 암전나는 거자서는 다 깁사다 다디 둠즈 파셰 추셰 얘네 주도 유시자시 카바 땅제 파파셰 텍스트 메시지 땅고 디디 체셰 제가 요인다 아니 딜라 디베 sabza치오냐 sabza 마제나나 야 베제나네 차바치기요 말을라디다 베주멘도 삼 상말라 셰샤나
Chaba said the
Beber,
yeah, Beber. Yang Gisla said the sisu gavishing than them, but the Chabati and Dura.
Dilla Chabachi Gilmar is.
Yeah.
Jidanta Dilla Chaba said, or Dilla Bever de la Shawarese. 就是给为新年党以及现在没得了你我们领导得了超下过没是这个没有这了嘛些不的超什么的是要超的 开始的还没过这呢但早上起面都上完了写下的呢的呢的用嘛的偏头嘛的
The third one of concealment is important. Here, it's the case that, particularly with regards to relating to a spiritual friend, and some of these things are new in Western culture, how to relate to a teacher, because some people might see a spiritual teacher as like a boss, but it's not really a boss. The idea of a teacher is to help you remove the difficult states of mind that come up and conversely help you with your positive ones. And it would be a mistake to think that you knew all about someone else's situation, or if you do know a little bit about someone else's situation, you can exaggerate it and think you know more. But in terms of relating to the spiritual friend, it's important not to conceal, not to hide secrets and so forth, of your mistakes. But on the other hand, such things shouldn't be spoken to anyone.
然后就是以及其实这了是那个刚才的些现象呢那就是境内怕脏了我查你呢那就是个刚才的东南西个上面呢样现在的哦对对上面的当过来面的那上面当这个是刚才的没有查到的偏多有了
Yeah, because if you confide a difficulty in a person that you can trust, then on the one hand, it cleans away that difficulty. In the second hand, you might hear of another method of observing that problem.
你光把了呢吧老中爱看了아니 수수게 야니 돈이 참아 개개는 शे고 요래서 로정아 차스나는 아니 수수다 내가 상마 신경이 이거 차지니 이 수수 인지 내가 차지하면 शे고요 말해서 어디 그래서나 어디 로정에 지나 로정에 상당한 शे벌 티자고 요래서 엄마인데 요래
It said in the monastery there's a tradition that prior to
로정은
under 15 when you're relating to your teacher, you tell your teacher everything that's going on, you like good and bad. But after that, when you begin to study, you would only share the big things, the important things, because you've begun to study yourself.
다들 시와 책벌라야 되고 다 단대디 차버디 띠무기 차도로 미시에 차도 보도록
Yeah, 차버디.
띠무기 차도 그래.
So concealment is of the branch of confusion or ignorance, because out of unawareness often we hide these things. The next one is spite.
시바들와
Yeah, 식바.
책벌데 가려서는 콘도 다한테 초와다 군진이 조성하던 게 초와다 군진이 용원도 용거다 초와다 군진이 용원도 책주부 현대게 지 여러가다 아래 책주부 현대 너가 현대 지 여러 어디 내가라다 책바사도 용거 여러
아 담보 초에 인니케는
말에 책바다 초와다 콘도 여러와 콘도 응원도 초와다 초와 용거 군지도 콘도님도 용거 여러
네
대행을 초와시 초외 응원도 책바리고 왔다
초기니엘라
초외 응원
눈라
책바리고
before 봐
가르쳐나 그 책주부 만들 책주부 들려되네 초와들 얘기하라 들려되네 콘도 얘기하라다
so spite is also close to anger, so it's like belligerence can come before the anger is full blown, and resentment can come together with anger or later. But even before the belligerence, one can have spitefulness. Mhm.
that is a tikbaladi tikzu gingwandi tikzu wandi tikzu xiandui ro ngorwa mishinda ge susula tu tikzu xiewa mishinda su xiewa yang susu pa tikzu xiedui su kondu sayung da ro adi ninga yung ngor de nega bla ya ni tikbache su chowache su kondu yung ngor.
Yeah, so this spitefulness can be directed towards you if you're the recipient, or if you are spiteful to someone else. And then after the spitefulness, the rage and wrath can come stronger. Yeah, the next one is jealousy. What do they say here? Yeah, jealousy, 5.
다 차도세 니 녀바당 꾸딜라 하고 차네와 수수 녀바당 꾸디 녀바스지 배 수수지 고야라 니 담다 녀다 아니 증오보다 텐데라 착배 언기 아니 신기 편도를 메세요로 신기 심 콘드 투바세요로 신기 편도라야 아니 메세베 아니 심 콘드 투베 디 시당기 처럼 차도 디 시당기 차도를 치고 있다.
Now, jealousy or envy is a branch of hatred, and wanting fame or wanting things, or the mind is upset over the fame or things that other people have, and you can't bear it. That's jealousy.
다데네 두버데 세나르도
Sena. Miserliness comes next.
세나디 아니 이제 가서래 녀바다 꾸딜라 하고 차네 요제라 차네 아니 디 담드지니 하고다 되자가 쳐도 봐. 그 담드진데 요죠. 되자가 쳐도 그랬어.
This is in the retinue of desirous attachment, and it is over wealth or possessions, and is a state of mind that's bound with that wealth and possession.
It is on. Gyudi karelana gyus야디 다 인구를 하고 차게 되자 때 티무기 차도 그러지래. 와다코 예보다 꾸딜 하고 차고 온게 아니 심 가서 그랬다. 되자게 차도 버. 되자게
차도 버.
되더다. 되더라도 균이 니보다 꾸딜 하고 차네. 되자다 티무기 차. 되자 티무니기 차도 그래서 되자게 차도 티무기 차도 gyudi ningala ne yende mayin bala kunde logbe sowe tenje logze tenje reso.
So this deceit is together with both desirous attachment and ignorance, and like deceit, like feigning qualities you don't have.
답변은 연자 카세르시다면 닝구를 하고 차원기 랑게 연대 메나 연대 요었더니 아니 신 루버드베게 심지.
Yeah, so it's a mental factor. It's a mind that doesn't have a particular quality but deceives others into thinking you do have that quality, and that. Yeah, and sometimes it is manifesting from desirous attachment. Sometimes it's coming from or underlied by ignorance, confusion.
Nyebada kudil hawar chan ningule chaba onge rangi nyeba shenla mingwa bawa de yo se dirwada nyebada kudila cha wa nyeba stu tam nyenda cha ne wa rangi nyeba de shen la mingyo ba ba de be lo ba de ba se de be ba de lo di la yo si lo
Yeah, younger Geshe de Yosed, dissimulation.
yo se de ani nyeba da kurdi la chakbe onge lo nyeba kurdi ha go ra
Yeah, desire, wealth, and fame.
chakbe onge rangi nyeba shen la mingyo ba de be lo mingyo ba pa kap de ba lo
Yeah, dissimulation of others. What does it mean, dissimulation? Because this translation has got deception. Yeah, it is right. So it is a type of deception, isn't it? Right. Right. So this is done out of desirous attachment to one's fame or name or wealth. Does that make sense?
de yu dang zhou shi de
Yeah, this 7 and 8 is similar, no, isn't it? Pretension and deception have a similar kind of feeling.
yes zhou
Yes, trouble too.
de da mi de yo cha bu du se ge wang zhe de mi de yo cha bu du se de ni ji xin ge yue ne xin ge mian ne xin ge yue dong de ro ji lo ani de je ro da xin ge mian ne xin ge yue dong de xin ge yue ne xin ge me dong de me na yue dong de yue na me dong de shi de je ro o de la yo se ge da
So when we say a person is very kind of like deceitful, they don't know, but they pretend to know. Or they pretend not to know when they know. Yeah, so these can be induced by either desirous attachment or, once again, unawareness, ignorance.
이 캠버 다오지요. 베나 이 캠버랑 마제로 캠버 다오로 베나 이 롱저를 점을 드미네 가신 이 대회에서 내 미지 롱저를 점어서 도와다 지나게로 사제 중고 단절이네 동의계 전야로 이내야 될 심 칸베 왕게 아니 수수야지 딱 마제마지 건데 작벌리고 다데 데 마제 말이 건데 작벌리고 다 심 이거
So now haughtiness. It's a funny one. Haughtiness. Generally, everything we use in the samsaric situation is like a contaminated phenomena. But just prior to pride being full blown, you can be haughty about it. You're like haughty? Yeah. That's that one.
네.
Hard to explain. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many reasons why we could be up and bloated or haughty. Yeah, it is normally because of desire.
Number 10.
Number 10 is harmfulness here, or sometimes called cruelty.
Number 10 said that simjin ning zewa me tozamba cewa mache kundila number 10 sad legura simjin la ning ji me wache ne tozamba se ne pe nova jendo so jik ta le yong go
Yeah. Harmfulness is prior to actually hurting sentient beings, not really having a heart for them or not having compassion for them, prior to actually hurting them. Yeah, of course, this is close to anger. Yeah. Yeah.
Number 7
This is important for us to know because we're supposed to be meditating on compassion, but there are times when aversion comes up in our mind. You might feel aversion to someone or that you don't feel you're responsible. This is important.
수수 직 수수 당아 나랑 미지 코데 동해도 비 내다 도자도 도나 나를 강에 태그랬어. 수수래야 지금 송교소래 수수래 직 저와 착보라 리제. 미신라 저와 매우 잘 인가도.
Almost an attitude of like, if I mix with those people that are suffering a lot, I'll be affected. So you're protecting yourself because you're attached to yourself. But if that is taken to extreme, that could also be harming others.
아주지와 뭐자매요 사들어. 뭐자매올라디 다감다 최 군제의 체네. 예발라 점바매로 왔다. 뭐자매었으니 예발라 점바매베 토네니. 다디 비진 디무기 차도로 지스레.
Lack of shame, number 11, with regards to oneself and not protecting oneself from misdeeds or infractions. And this is related to desirous attachment. Yeah.
다디 되자시다 디무송갈 차도로 도로.
Yeah. Oh, well, actually, that one we could say underlying it are those three: desirous attachment, aversion, and unawareness, ignorance.
데네 주니바디 테메오세가 그죠 뭐저 테메오스디 직직난 로고다 근데 뭐사와메오 테메오스 디제니스용도 테메오스라는데 아두마 부타로 보여라 부타고 마 14고도 보여라 테메오스디 당연히 뭐저 메와디 랑준 지고요라 다 테메오스디 신준지 진의 예발을 점마메오사들다.
Right. And the 12th, non-embarrassment. So whereas non-shame was related to oneself as a reference point, non-embarrassment relates to you in comparison to others. So these two are close in the Tibetan. They're sometimes put as one. But here, for clarity, we are separating self and other. Yeah, and they can all be induced by desirous attachment, aversion, and ignorance. Now we're getting into darkness with lethargy. Here, the definition of lethargy is that the body and mind are bound in a state of not being serviceable. The thought, oh, I can't be bothered. So here, laziness is about to be. Right, of course, that's in the retinue of timok, confusion or ignorance. Yeah. Okay. Now here it is important to think on the virtues. So if lethargy, if laziness is about to creep in, then you should think, okay, what are the virtues of, you don't feel like meditating. Okay, so what are the benefits of meditating? With you guys, it's easier to exercise. I find it really difficult physically. Yeah, I have lethargy to physical exercise. This affliction is close to sleep. Right, now 14, excitement.
sim to kanshila ani pe dejage sim shubado dejage chato bado nga deyon la mine sim ani deyon la mi sim chiri toshin ini seva dojala juba cho tadi 제가 초와 탐지 고바 시작이요 말다와 제가 디신 거다 고바 세디 심 치료라 직대용 경험을 미그와 베나 딩이즈로 곰데디 다시 님보러 오질 상다 제들 차고야 온게 심 치료를 요로했어 어디 고바를
Okay. So excitement then, when desire arises for a particular object you're attracted to, one gets excited in that regard. Not all angers are excitement. For example, you try to cultivate single point in concentration and you hear a nice piece of music and you desire to hear that.
다 곰잡데디 아니 닝지 곰바 도이나 디심 초월에 디고바 마로와
Oh yeah, so if you're trying to cultivate single point of concentration, but you instead meditate on compassion, then
근데 용도가 그 곰직 잡데디 어직잖니 니잖니 또 조로다
yeah,
교야 요제로디 고바 시작이요 말해 심 치료를 초 탐지 아니 콘도디 고바 말와 콘도게 심 초가 여러 그 곰잡데디 깔레칸 콘도 사야 된데도 콘도 사야 심
이거빠 말아.
디 고바 말와 심 초로 하시나 하시에게 심 초제를 고바 시작이도 일단 뱀디 노르기요라 하시나
So kasa seishik sim seishik nene ningjela truna.
디 초월에 고바 말와
Right. Yeah. So if you are trying to meditate on, stability of mind or calm abiding, and instead you meditate on compassion, that's distraction. That's not excitement.
다드네 중앙어데 마테바로 마테바
So 15, lack of faith.
디무그 추에다 디 마데베 추디 게베 추 까우 게베 추라야 아니 심 이미 추바들이 마테바서 이마 추바다 렌데라 이제메고 군조라 이제메바 게와체나 드부 대와 용그레스 이제메바 데라 마테바서 그러다
Lack of faith when one is ignorant of virtue, for example, ignorant of behavioral cause and effect, that in dependence on virtue, happiness results, and so forth.
디무그 차도로 싱네 내가 마시베 온게 렌데라 이제메바 게와마지리 이제메바 군조라 이제메바디 산지 군조 이제메바디 수수 메시베 온게 다 이제메 차로
Yeah, and all of these lack of faiths are coming from unawareness or ignorance, that one doesn't believe in karma, behavioral cause and effect. One doesn't believe in future lives or the three rare sublime ones.
주두고디 레로로 다 레로 리스트
16, now laziness has come.
게베초라 조베 파드지 디와서 데왈라 디네로와데 주수 녜와 땅 아니 데와다 딘데라 디네 아니 심 메토 와 심라 가나메 심라 가시메 딜레 레로스여로 레로 딜라다 차원신이 레로 니 지루베 레로 다니엘니베 레로 세든데 여러로
So lelo gingo karisenda mitro arwa gewala mitro.
sim gewala toame
Laziness is like a mind that does not delight in virtue, doing virtuous things. And we know that there are the three types of laziness: procrastination, where you are distracted by entertainments and so forth. And the third one, where you just put yourself down, or you think you're not worthy.
다디
Yeah, that again is coming out of unawareness or ignorance. Right, so non-conscientiousness, number 17, or carelessness sometimes.
gewe chunam migumshi sagwadan jiwe chunam sim misungwa pame sarbi nyomo da nyewe chonam le so sim misungwa pame sarbi sim misungwa sarbi sim gewe nyomo da nyeba da tendela sim misungwa pame sarbi
non-conscientiousness or carelessness is when afflictions or mistakes are about to arise, not guarding the mind. Not guarding the mind, yeah.
Focusna dujadan shidadan timugu chatoni gewe chunam megum gewe chun megum wa ani gewala yata mashubache ani migewe chula yata pame ta shubaji yora simchi tele ya pame sta kodewshinati.
Yeah, so lack of conscientiousness out of desires, attachment, or ignorance, aversion. You could, one could engage in virtue as a countermeasure or meditate, but one doesn't. Why? Because you're careless or you're not guarding.
Adne jojeba de jingi ta jingi ta nyora nyumu migwa ta chamba jiro adoro gewe sim chamba jiro ngobo chamba jiro adelo jingi sigro ta.
Yeah, and then forgetfulness. Quite simply, you forget what is virtuous. You forget the focal object when you're meditating.
Adi beje dimuk chado mendo.
So that's probably that's probably close to ignorance.
Reda dimuk chado reda.
Yes, it is. It is close to ignorance.
Ta jingi de tingsan shibuji yonggo ro.
There seems to be a lot of forgetfulness around at the moment, these days.
그래서는 nyumu shukchitadu 아니 jingi ligre siade ta di tanda manzu ti chilo ge zero janya samdan de ra tanda di pejenala nyumu shukchitawi inza ani jingi ligre slavindi di kuju shishto warwa.
Yeah, because afflictions are so strong, forgetfulness comes. Because our minds are so outer orientated, we forget. That's really true, isn't it? The current stage, being distracted.
다드네 다 잡시죠. 님입니다. 주고와디 시시만이 바로.
Yeah. So
시시만이 바샤디 시시니 미든초래 다로 먼저 시시만이 바사데 다베 딩예바 용야다 직경 용야다 저절라 삽사마제 시제 데데야들라니 시시만이 바스다디 디묵 쳐도로.
Yeah. And then non-introspection quite clearly is the exact antithesis of introspection, that you're not guarding against faults and mistakes, and underlying this is unawareness.
시시만이 다 되게 시시 지야도 백해진물에 나오는 것이.
Yeah, this one is important for us to be introspective.
다단다 이 년료도 마 장제 다 되는 게 되자가 차도시단 지도 디무 차도 베나 수수 컨트롤시에 전부이나 아니 컨트롤단 차도 디제라 럽전 체제 상로다로 되자 시에체에는 되자 차도도 섬다 디무 시에들 차도세나 디 거기 연라 디제 섬다 먼저 되자시나 디무 마지 혼라니 뉴모 디제 제 디제운데 뭐서나 아니 되자시나 지금마라 되자시나 제차나
Okay, this call. So then it's good for us to study these and know them, because we could be a person that's more likely to get angry, have hostility, or we could be a person that is stronger in the desire area, or we could be a person that's more ignorant. But then it's good to know what is close to these states of mind, because by the time that the hostility is fully blown, or the desire is fully manifest, or we're totally unaware, then it creates problems. So it's good to observe these
다 뉴시담바데 남이에 남이 그봐 남이에서도 뉴모의 셈미발에 용어체와들에 다 남이 그봐
Here, the final one, distraction, it is due to being an afflicted mind. It is distracted with regards to what it's focused on.
아데 되자시단 디무 송거 차도 용디도
Yeah, and that can be underlined with either of the three destructive emotions of desire, ill will, or ignorance.
당한서 단다디 낭베추 직추지니지 담이 심 개와 심 야고 심 연된처럼 상로단이지 계지셔운데 아니 남이 있어야 돼 남이 치 남이 있어야 되는데 단 남이를 망무셔져 남이 있어야 돼 아니 삼로 담에다 단데스도 대변에 주차다 약게 미치도 전혀 삼단데스도 도주 남도다 면샤제 디젤 주제 남도 가는 수주 남도 수제로 이게 저 미지기 아니 찍찍찍찍 시에샤스는 나대 말에 니 숨숨래스야 미신달 계시네 소니스도 어도도 남이 데데는 아도 심투로 요라 남이 심투고 치 남이 가래라이도 아니 다 직도와 가서 그래 다지 gem지야 서로 근데 차나 동가도야 서로 때문도 자도 다가도야 서로 근데 아니 지미 가서 그래 가도이나 네게도 짠짠 셰된 요 메드 주님도도나 남이 축좀 차로 나간다 셈 인제 겨워치 매워 고급 좀 해드렸다
Well, then,
남이
in short, the secondary affliction of distraction robs the mind of its opportunity to engage in virtue. And if you're talking about distraction from the perspective of a practitioner of Dharma, there's like inner distraction and outer distraction. Inner distraction is when the person is constantly revolving something that happened in the past, bringing it up again and again. This 1, 2, 3 happened, so and so, it's like that. And it becomes like a story, a mental construct. So that type of thing. And then outer distractions are when you are distracted by games, going to the pub, movies, friends that mislead, and so forth.
mislead
A misleading friend.
friend mislead
Friend mislead.
어디래 탭디 로 숨주성으로 니킨 마님도 킨 숨주성
Geshe's had this book for 35 years. The one with all the factors in it.
Your favorite
From his teacher, I think.
당에 가슈 탭지래 디디
It's the book I love the most.
바과디 팀만 숨주어져서
I've changed the cover 3 times.
이 카트도 변해도 변해
Right, the cover's from Tibet.
지금 로사 카트도 아니게 돼 잡시
It's a Losar card that's been put on.
야 영화
Is it Geshe Jampa?
Yes. It's the same one we've got here. Yes. Geshe
이게
Jampa.
뭐 심정을 좀 아직 저와 하고 싶어.
Yeah, it's a good root and commentary of the 51.
맞아 지금 랍사 된 거만.
We did it here.
야,
Did we?
그렇죠. 저와 저니.
Oh, you got it. Good.
그 나 좋아해.
Questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
What's when the word wrath?
Wrath, yeah.
Wrath. Young person wrath.
Yes.
좋았어 그래.
Try it again.
How would one define wrath, and how is that different from, for example, religion?
Yes, that's interesting because some translators do actually translate this one as wrath. So I'm not sure. Because belligerence came out a bit different, didn't it?
Anyway, wrath.
I know that, Philippa, but I'm just trying to clarify the difference in English. So belligerence and wrath, what's the difference?
And how would we define wrath? Yeah.
Yeah, true. So belligerence here was, how did we define that? How do you define belligerence versus wrath? I'm getting English clear first, then I'll ask him.
Well, that's a question. I don't know. Belligerence is in the book, of course. Belligerence.
Yeah, we don't just go by the book. The question is clarifying the English.
It's malice when the cause of harm abides nearby and is involved with anger.
Belligerence.
Yep.
And wrath.
Well, I don't know.
Kisla trose di perkele tine pine hidam kasi choki layo wadi. Tine kondro ma mundu ju nela ya tro yor wadi. Tro.
예. 티켜와 그래. 그래.
Mari inji kola konza sikni. Na sikni di sebaram mundu te kola. So tro youngest chila.
초어서야지 데려와. 초어서야지. 아니 컨트롤 심 컨트롤 마치 권에 심 군에 나심be 무엇을 빼나 미지경 알아 너비지도 스라. 야면은 수수 컨트롤 사연데 밀 쇼고도 스라. 그래. 아니 컨트롤 마저가 이 저과듯이 밀 쇼고.
Yeah.
수수를 땜be. 아무 수수를 직자베나.
Yeah. Ngarang kong nyugi yusung.
nga kola nyugi yisirwa
Yeah.
midi ngala nesons
Yeah.
ani ngala pa midi la ta
Tanibu.
ta shuk yisim jik pe dinde dwa kaza kuna pe ya jik shuba döba right chonje lemba döba mila nöba jeba döba o dile samdana ya
Yeah. I'm not sure about the difference between belligerence and wrath, but just from the Tibetan, what's being said is this belligerence is prior to actually harming someone, the thought, oh, well, I'll strike them or I'll, inflict harm on them.
that 단듯이 초다 초보세야 되는 하 초보세도
Yeah.
하디 탁부로 봐고 탁부스도 이제 신화사부로서 땡어라 하면서
Yeah.
딩기 닝지기 끝내라는데 제외인다 될 초와색 말해
Yeah.
초보단 초와를 배려가래
Yeah. But that's not the same as a fierce or wrathful deity, because a fierce or wrathful deity has underlying compassion. That's not the same as the context here of belligerence.
진짜데 뉴모로 싸워디
Yeah, this one is an afflicted mind.
그래서 yeah, the online no question.
Any question?
John?
If I could ask the same question asked last week, really, we've seen all the root afflictions and the secondary afflictions and the amazing list of negative qualities, but to me, the three that stand out that afflict the human race are fear, selfishness, and greed, and they dominate. I'm just wondering where they come in with what we've been through.
Yeah. So the question was, there's 6 root and 20 secondary afflictions are an amazing list, but the 3 that stand out for you are fear, selfishness, and greed. Is that right?
Yeah, I think these ones affect the human race more than anything else at the moment anyway. So I could be wrong. I'm just
Yeah,
wondering
yeah.
where they come into it.
Isla Sanyin
아니고
Truk Tang
이니시
Yela Nishu Denzo Haleba Chachimbudu Inyan Korangi Nola on the Migi Ni Chishi Sum Yorwa Chikta Rang Chinzi Decha.
네네 그다래 안다 녀모 되자시던 띠묵지도 다 대야 대잡라 단지요로 단지 때 띠묵세야지도 띠묵라에 자치모를 보라라 네 요로
Rang Chinzi.
아니 되네 란친진디야 로 튼튼도라 고 녀모 차셔 단다 디게 자모 녀모 냐냐로 단지디 녀모 많이 봐요래 란친지 녀모 많이 봐요래 되잘라 녀모 이 베차라 단다 디게 상마 녀모 냐냐 녀모 냐냐 녀모 예워냐 녀모 냐냐 하고 디 겨와시고 단다 녀모게 남세게 여시에 뭐라 이 다라를 지난 나와 다라데 란친지다 단지다 저 녀로서 니데
Chikta Tang Rang Chinzi Tang Decha.
리 띠묵사드나라 직도 되사 띠묵사도
Yeah.
뭐 말해봐서드나라 직다디 띠무딘지 말해봐라 단단 안서 자녀 두 니니 시에디 녀몽이 여진냐 시행으로 와서 레지 군주된 바다 녀몽의 군주된 바서 녀몽 군주된 배 여시고다 란진지단 단지다 녀몽인배야 좋아요 말해서
Yeah, so what we're looking at in terms of karma and disturbing emotions are the second group of disturbing emotions or afflictions. And if you look at fear and selfishness, greed, of course, is in there because greed is desirous attachment. But But the first one you mentioned, fear, jiktas are like what's it called? Namda, shita. Fear, jikta, namda.
직달라야디 란주 나다 나요 미네 나라
Namda, say it, namda.
직타
Fear, shita. No, shigadu.
디 직다 말들 직타
Yeah, jikta.
직타
No,
알레
shigadu, say it.
디레네 디다 직타로 알레요 직타도 남다다 톡바다 로
Yeah.
레레 그래서 네 직다 원게 다 로아 수수 롱바데 매지 베사서서 롱마신 누구 열어다
Yeah.
직다 그거로
Mm.
디 동해야 교지래 그래서 와다 하나도 미망고지 가 시야라 시네 강이 되게 열어
Yeah.
낭배 추진이 시야를 때 시내야고요
Mm.
아니 당가 시도 가르 펜 가르토고 되러 어디 삼다는 상상은 직다 유나 야고요래 와 추지야를 펜도요래
Sometimes, yeah, it's true. With fear, one can have fear or anxiety or thoughts around suffering. But fear is not always negative because, you know, you can, for example, fear death, and it can be a good thing in the context of Buddhism to fear, you know, to have a trepidation or fear of one's death is actually a, you know, a good thing.
지상 남부산에 최배의 라마가마 베나마 예송 동해전야식이 열어
Yeah.
발전에서는 직달래야 쇼로 동해들의 쪽에 누구슬로도 다들 아니 군조로 두고선 아니 잠도 치고 열어 잠도 쳐는 수수 예송에 잡두고 열어 뒤치는 식이 열어 제가 탈란디로 직다지야지 직다디께나 다 직과들의 쪽에 누구도 술로도 상담하는 이유는 직다가는 상담하냐고 열어
Yeah.
다 직과들의 쪽에 누구도 술로도 상담하다니지는 직과를 상담하다는 얘기를 다들
Yeah. So in terms of the context of Buddha Dharma, if one understands the potential for difficult rebirths, if one understands the potential for difficult rebirths in the lower realm, unfortunate rebirths, one will seek protection, a valid direction to be safe from that. And then one sees that the three jewels, three rare sublime ones, can afford that. So you take refuge or go to the three gems for refuge to stop that possibility. So it's like a method or a path that has the potency to protect you from those fears. You know, when we talk about the causal refuges or the cause of refuge, they are fear and faith. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, when you talk about lethargy, you said it was a branch of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about the body and mind and are in a state where they're non-serviceable and so on. Laziness is about to be. And I'm wondering whether it's not also in the branch of attachment, because I might be reading a nice book and then I'm really attached to kind of the sun coming in reading the book, but I should really be doing some meditation. Is that not a kind of like desire?
Yeah. So the question is about lethargy kind of coming into the sleep or close to sleep and coming from or being close to ignorance, would it not also be close to desirous attachment? Then mukbar wadi mukbar dang pasan nyamon karelab gore marikpala tani berwako. Kutala tichena terchatang tani bu yom sigre karisana kom majabeche. Terchak you want to tene tip tende me badam shiban. Any call the logic.
Handes 한데서
Mariko,
이말라 되네.
Mari Mukpa.
저는 목바디
Mukpa di,
자도
Mukpa di Maripa la travel Yorvadi.
Really?
Marang de Karichana,
디묵 자도래라라.
Timuki Chada Mari Chichana Dirchok tam travel Yorva. Question the Dirchok, you want the tene, Kurang tep log Yorvadi. Come Maja, tep log do so dirty.
지다고 중에라 야도사로 가득들라고 그런 오 그런 디묵단 다버지요래서 그래.
That's right. You're talking about direct commensurate causes before, though, but underlying it as an entity is ignorance. It's a different.
꿀로는 단데 꿀로는 상당해요 말.
Yeah, we're not thinking about motivation here. We're thinking about what it's close to in terms of its quality,
뭐부터.
its entity.
아야. 하다 그래.
Yeah.
아니니니지 도선.
Yeah, so we've been through the 20 secondary afflictions.
아데샤.
Page 31, open door.